Welcome back. Today I'll be showing you how to read a pattern. So I'll be using these two patterns right here. I've had these patterns for quite a while. I used this one for a Halloween costume a couple years ago, and I've repurposed this one many times. I used it for sewing lessons and all the things. So we are going to be going over the back of the pattern, and we'll be also going over the little flip here, and I will be showing you guys a little bit the instructions on the pattern. And the reason why I have two patterns here is because patterns can vary depending on what is inside of them. So I wanted to show you the difference between a pattern that has a lot of things inside of it and not quite as much. So we are going to dive right in. Alright, so what we're going to look at first is this little flap up here. So if you take this out and you fold it over, you're going to see that there's sizes, and then it's going to tell you your waist and hips and the measurements you need and what measurements correspond with each size. So the first tip that I want to give you is do not pick a pattern based on your size. So patterns usually run a little bit differently in sizes, and a lot of times they use European sizes. So most of the time your size here in America or wherever you are isn't going to match up to the pattern you buy. So always go and buy a pattern based on what the measurements here say that you need for your waist or your hips or your chest or whatever you are making. So as you can see here, I am a medium. So usually I run as a small or an extra small, but in this pattern I am a medium, and that is why I do tell you guys to make sure you go by your measurements and not by, oh, this pattern is a small through large pattern. Obviously this is my size pattern. No, maybe you run an extra small or maybe you run an extra large and you don't know it because you didn't look at your measurements, so make sure you check those out. So this flap will also have the pattern brand, and it will also have the pattern number. So usually these patterns are sorted by pattern number in fabric stores, and that's how you find them. And then it'll show you the difficulty here as well, if this is an easy pattern, intermediate pattern, advanced pattern, all of that good stuff. So what we're going to take a look at now is this portion right here. This is the same thing over here, this is just in another language. So we're going to be looking at this right here. So let's get this centered. So on the back of your pattern, you're going to see that it's going to tell you what kind of pattern it is. So this is shorts and pants, and it's going to tell you a little short description of what this item is. And then it's going to get into the different patterns that you can make with it. So down here, you'll notice that it says A, B, C, and D. So there are 4 different patterns in this little envelope that you can make. So it's gonna always show you, even on the front, it'll show you an A, D, B, C. It'll always distinguish the patterns using letters, so you know which one is which. So up here, you'll notice it has A, and this right here means fabric width. So usually if you go to the fabric store, your fabric width will be 45 inches or 60 inches. So you need to buy your fabric based on what your fabric width is. And these are the amount of fabric you need for each size. So if you have a small and your fabric is 45 inches, you need 2 5/8 yard. Usually I round up because I like having extra fabric, but you can do whatever you want. You can get the exact amount of fabric, or you can round up. Or another example is if you were a large in this pattern and it was 60 inches and you were doing pattern D, you would need 2.5 yards of fabric. Down here, it'll show you what kind of fabrics work best for this pattern, and it shows you based on each pattern that you can create. So AB says border print, CD says Georgette, linen, all these patterns. And it'll have any notions that you need. So notions are basically any elastic or buttons, zippers, anything that you need to help create the garment that isn't your fabric. And then down below, right here, it'll show you the finished garment measurements. So here, these sizes all have, of course, finished garment measurements. So it'll show you which ones here that the finished garment. So if you need to correct it in the pattern or whatever, you need to alter the pattern to make it fit you better, you can do that here based on what these measurements tell you. And another thing that is important about reading the pattern packet is right here, or sometimes it shows you along the side here. So on this one, I'll show you in a minute, but it always says what sizes are included in this pattern. So yes, there are extra small through an XX large in this pattern, but this pattern might not have all these sizes. So you cannot go based on what the sizes say on this flap. You need to look here and look for it on the front that says which sizes this pattern contains. So this pattern only has an extra small, a small, and a medium. So make sure you're looking at that. This pattern, it's up here, and it says the pattern US sizes 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So this is a corset, so the pattern sizes are done a little bit differently, but it'll always say somewhere on the front, whether it's on the sides, down on the bottom, or usually up on top. Now that we've looked at the packet, we're gonna look at the instructions a little bit. So when you open up the instructions, all right, so if we open up the packet just so that it's on the first page, you'll notice that it shows you again the different patterns that are in this pattern, and it shows you layouts. So this is the suggested layouts you use for laying out your pattern pieces on fabric, and it gives you again your 45 width and your 60 width, and then it gives you them based on the pattern as well. So this is for pants B, and this is for pants C and D, and then if I flip it over, it'll show you the shorts here. So let's open this up. So here it'll show you all the different pattern pieces inside of your pattern. So it'll have them numbered, and then it'll have which one is which here on the sides and which ones you need for each pattern. So for pants A and B, you need 1, 2, 3, and if it has nothing by it, means you need them for both. So 4 you'll be using for all of these pattern pieces right here, but 1, 2, and 3 you're only going to be using for A and B, and 5, 6, 7, 8 are only going to be used for 7 or C and D. Down here it'll show you again the measurements that you need for this pattern and which measurements go with each size, and it also tells you the number size fit into this category in case you were interested or wondering. So this category right here, the fabric cutting layouts, is just going to show you and go over the different things that you might find in this pattern that you might not know about if you're a beginner sewer. So it'll go over grain line, the thicknesses of the fabric with or without the fold. It'll go over nape or without nape, just like this sewing information box right here. This will show you, if you don't know what the seam allowance is, it shows you most patterns are all 5/8. You're not really going to find a pattern that has a seam allowance that isn't 5/8, and if it does, it'll definitely tell you in the instructions, because most patterns are 5/8, so they don't tell you seam allowance in the instructions because they automatically assume you know that it's 5/8. And then all patterns also have a glossary with words in it that maybe you don't know, again, if you're a beginner sewer. So it'll show you an edge stitch and give you short descriptions of each one. And you also can check out different stitches on my YouTube channel if you're interested in that, so be sure to check that out. And then it gets into the instructions. So instructions on a pattern, it shows you shorts A and pants B. So these instructions are only for shorts A and shorts B. If we flip it over, it'll continue that hem, and then it'll switch to the pants. So pants C and D. So this is the pattern that I wanted to show you that's a bit more complex, because I want you to see that the more pattern pieces in it does not make it any more confusing. It's the exact same layout that you're gonna see in all other patterns. So as you can see here, this layout has 6 different patterns that you can do inside of this pattern. And it's gonna be the exact same layout as you saw before. So you're gonna have your fabrics that you work with this pattern, any notions that you need. Sometimes the arrangement of it is a little different based on how many patterns are in it. So as you can see here, it tells you that information here on the bottom, but on this one it tells you it on the top. And then it gets into your fabric that you need for each one. So this one is split up the exact same way. See, it has ABC corset, and it gives you your fabric width again, and then it shows you the sizes. Here is your body measurement, so your bust and your waist and your hip and all the measurements that you need to take in order to complete this pattern are right here. And it gives you your sizes down here and also your European sizes. And then it will give you your fabric. Right here it'll also tell you if you need any additional things to go with your fabric, of course. So if you need any trims or interfacing or notions or anything like that, up here it tells you the notions you need for each one. They split it up this way, but down here it shows you all your fabric. So for this you need a lining, so it'll say this is the fabric that you need for your garment, and this is the lining, interfacing, overlay. So any additional things you need for A, B, and C will be all right here. And as you can tell, again, this is a more complicated pattern because this pattern, the pants pattern, does not have any extra trims or any embellishments. This, as the pants do, this pattern is going to be more complicated than this pattern because of all the extra little embellishments on these pieces. These two down here are the same as this one. It's going to tell you which corset it is, how much fabric you need, interfacing, any additional ruffles or lining that you need, and same with this. So now let's take a look at the patterns and the differences between the pattern instructions. So because there's so much in this pattern, they actually split it into 2 different instruction books. And the first instruction book is this one, but it's going to have the same general layout. See here you have your pattern pieces that you need, general instructions like different things you might not know about, so what's on the pattern and what every symbol means, cutting and marking. It has all your pattern pieces right here, front and back. Show you the layouts for how to cut it out on fabric. And then if we flip it over, we get into the instructions. So again, like I said, this is all going to be relatively the same layout. So you have corset A, B, and C, and continue, and then here it continues as follows. So if it says something like this in your pattern for view C, this is only for that pattern. So C, this is only for C. So you would skip this one for A and B, continue going down. So it says continue as follows for A, B, and C. And then you get over here and you have another for view C. So you would only do this one for C and then continue. Okay, and there you have it. That is how you read a pattern. So patterns are going to vary on difficulty based on how many patterns there are in each one, and of course how difficult the actual pattern is to construct. So another last remark that I wanted to make was the terminology and the phrases used in some sewing patterns can be confusing, but there isn't really any way for me to explain them to you because they're usually based on the context and what you're sewing. So it does take some getting used to if you've never read a pattern before to really get used to what they mean when they use certain phrases or terms or things like that. Like I remember when I first started reading patterns, I couldn't do it because I had absolutely no idea what they were trying to tell me to do. So it's really So the pictures and the patterns are extremely helpful, and if you really are having issues with something, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help you figure things out, or of course you can look up how to do things, because there are many different videos on how to do probably anything that patterns have for you. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. Please give it a thumbs up, please subscribe to my channel for more sewing, fashion design content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.